What's going on, team? Proof here, and today I'm going over my stats breakdown for Shine Gurguit that I featured in my previous video. The deck was a lot of fun to play and very scary and very powerful, and I think the record kind of indicates that. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right into it. So as I tried to establish in my previous video, when I do these stat breakdowns, I try to play at least 20 games because it allows me to get a feel for the deck, get better with the deck, and then try to get a variety of matchups as well. So over the 20 games that I played with Shine Gurguit, my overall record was 18-2. So really impressive, but some of the games were also very tight and very close, and also were influenced by me hitting trigger checks at very timely fashion. For example, hitting through a 2 to pass when my opponent would give me said 2 to pass on my twin drive, or hitting a double heal trigger, which took me from high damage to something much more manageable to survive a following turn, or also seeing defensive heal checks when the game would have been me losing in some otherwise fashion, such as when I'm playing against Battle Sisters and I had to tank the hit, and I healed from I think from 4 to 3 or from 5 to 4 or something like that. So very close to being more so maybe like a 15-5 or a 16-4 record, but fortune favored me in that particular game, so my record kind of indicates that. But the losses that I had definitely took advantage of the fact of those weaknesses that I talked about in the previous video. One loss was me having a G assist for grade 1 and whiffing it, which meant that I was behind an additional turn already. And then my other loss was me losing to Kagero playing against the Cross going second. And I kind of had to, they played Force 2, I had no PGs in hand, so I kind of had to tank the first hit, and they checked a crit. And for whatever reason, I didn't play my heal guard after I hit a defensive trigger, given the -2 crit. And I didn't do that, and I would have had enough to survive. And then maybe if things fell a certain way, I could have maybe stabilized and turned the game around, but don't know why. I don't know why I punted that game away, but it reflected in the record. For my wins by turn order, I had a nice even split of 10 games going first and 10 games going second, fortunately. So as I talked about before, I did have 2 losses. Both of those losses came from me going second. And I'm really not surprised to see the fact that I went 10-0 going in the games I went going first, because you have the ability to go the turn 3 excel play if your opponent gives you 2 counter blasts. If your opponent gives you 1 counter blast to work with, you can still go Shine Dragon into core to generate 2 excel markers, and then you can pop off with core, giving the rear guards you call additional power while giving himself power as well to make his attack more threatening. And either way, as long as you get Gurguit in hand for turn 4, you can have the ability to pop off with 3 excels guaranteed, or 4 excels if you find the Percival in some way, shape, or form between turns 3 and turn 4 to give yourself that additional power buff as well. And by going first, it gives you that additional time because you can control the tempo of the game a little bit better and realistically survive your opponent's turn 3 to get to your turn 4, where you scale up exponentially from there. In addition to that, here's my win percentage by the clans that I faced, and also against the deck variants that I faced. And the most meta deck that I played was against Prism. I had a little testing session going back and forth, and of those 4 games, all 4 were wins. And some of those wins were lucky chances, happenstance for me, and some of them was me navigating the game well in my particular situation to be able to overcome the fact I was playing against Prism, which is arguably the strongest deck in the format right now, unless things change going into the upcoming restricted list. Overall, the deck was incredibly fun to play. Like I mentioned before, very powerful, a lot of fun combos to be putting together. You kind of make a combo on the fly, and the better you are able to sequence that, it allows you to string together strong combos and just hit over the fact that your opponent might have a whole bunch of defensive triggers or a whole bunch of hand or what have you. And I try to think about another stat that people might have found interesting, and the one that I came to mind, or the one I came up with, was tracking how many games I was able to achieve 3 excels on turn 3, because that's where things get really scary. Of the 20 games that I played, I was able to achieve the 3 excels turn 3 11 out of the 20 times, which gives me 55% chances, or 55% of my games I'll be able to achieve that, which in my mind is a fairly decent clip, because say over over an 8-round event, maybe you're able to achieve that 5 games out of the 8, or at least half of the time you'll be able to achieve that, which means you give yourself incredible odds of being able to win the game that way, because you're able to have so many Excel markers for your Percival ride the following turn. But the fact that you can fit all that into a 5-card package, or I guess technically 11-card package, because you need to have the Liberator grade 2s to ride, I think it's still fairly consistent to get it off that many times over a 20-game sample size. So all in all, the deck is very powerful. Having a little bit of luck in time at a certain point at key moments in some of the games allowed me to have a higher win percentage, because just how crazy powerful the deck can be once you get to your turn 4 and you're scaling and you're snowballing. So I think the deck is in a really good spot, maybe too good of a spot if you're able to have both Percival and Holy Shine together. But the deck does have some weaknesses that you can exploit, with the fact that it has so many grade 3s in hand, or potentially have it in hand, or the fact you have so few grade 1s. So if you want to take the deck like I mentioned before, maybe you want to tweak that up in some form or fashion. However, by doing so, you might lose out on some of the possible attack extension, but it might be worthwhile to fit in that consistency, so you don't have those games where you go second and whiff on having a grade 1 to ride, because then you're so far behind the 8 ball that way. So things to keep in mind there. But yeah, that'll do it for me. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, let me know down below, give me some feedback. Let me know what other types of stats you might want to see added to this particular type of presentation. Yeah, that'll do it for me. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time. Peace. Be easy.